All right, it is 9 p.m. right now when I'm filming this. I just ate a crap ton of chocolate ice cream to get wired before filming. I was watching Before the 90 Days. It's like a spin-off of 90 Day Fiancé. Oh my god, you guys gotta watch that one too. The Couple in Brazil, season 1, too good. So recently I did my all-time favorite drugstore highlighters. Today we're doing the opposite, talking about high-end highlighters that I think are worth the money. Most of the ones I'm going to mention I've actually had in my collection for a couple years, so they're ones that I've really thoroughly worn, tested, and these are the ones that I love. High-end highlighter is a bit of a tongue twister there. So if you're excited for this video and you find it helpful, you can give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, I upload every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific time, and I'm going to leave the drugstore highlight video down below, so after this, you can go watch that if you missed it. Let's start out with the highlight that I'm wearing on my face today. So this is a highlight that I actually haven't shown on my channel in a while, like a couple years, and I used to always talk about it. I used to use it all the time. This is the Smashbox Spotlight palette. It's in the shade Pearl. This packaging was limited edition, but the palette itself is permanent, and I actually just looked and they have a travel size of this for 10 bucks on Macy's or on Saks. I'll link the travel size below and the normal one. If I'm traveling and I know I'm going to be wearing self-tanner or something, I could just bring this palette because I can use the lightest shade when it starts wearing off, and then when my self-tanner's going strong, I can use these two shades, but I really love this lightest shade. It is just a beautiful, super soft, pearly kind of white. You can see it on my face today, and the way this sits on my skin is just so nice and smooth. It almost reminds me a little bit of the collab highlight that I mentioned in my drugstore video. This one isn't the most intense by any means out of the ones I'm going to talk about, so this is just one that I've had for years. Still recommend. So next up is one by Milk Makeup that is intense. Definitely different kind of look than that Smashbox one. This is the shade Lit. It's their Flex highlight. I've worn this a ton in different videos. This launched I think within the last year or two, maybe like year and a half or so. And this highlight is one of those that I just cannot put down. This one I just always want to use if I want that intense kind of highlight. I'll either go for like this or Ofra. I didn't include the Ofra Glazed Donut because that one, I don't know if Ofra's like high-end. What is Ofra considered? Might be considered high-end. I also like that one. Ofra has been glowing on me. That was not intended. That Ofra one's been growing on me. I used to not like that, but now if I want like a BAM one to like really show up in photos or whatever, I'll go for Ofra. Or this one also has that same kind of effect where you can definitely tell it's on there. I do make different shades of the Flex highlighters. This one's the one that works best on my skin tone. It's not as light as some of the highlighters I want to mention. It's definitely a little bit darker than the one I have on, but it's still wearable on my skin tone. So next is one that came out a few years ago. It was limited edition, and then recently they just brought it back, and I think it's permanent now. I hope it is, but it's the Hourglass Ambient Strobe Light Palette. This thing's gonna blind you, this packaging. This is one of my all-time favorite highlights when I want that intense, almost wet look, metallic highlight. There's no glitter in here. They're so beautiful. I don't know why I just didn't put that on my middle finger. Oh my gosh, look at that shade. This is not a like glow from within natural kind of look. This is basically exactly what it sounds like, a strobing kind of highlight. It is intense. We can add a little bit on. So I'm gonna use the middle shade. That's my favorite. I guess I probably shouldn't have worn any highlight and just put it on, but here we go. So pretty. Next up we have one by Fenty Beauty, and I think this is probably my favorite product that Fenty makes. I don't love a lot of Fenty products, just most of them I find don't work out for me, but this one is a Fenty product that I totally think is worth it. This is their highlighter, Kilawatt highlight in Girl Next Door and Chic Freak. So this shade is definitely the one that I use most, and I love this because it almost gives that like blush topper effect where it does look just like a pinky, healthy, kind of more natural glow. If you're around my skin tone, it's gonna be borderline on the like too dark blush topper side, so I usually will bring it down a little bit lower than normal so it just looks like I have kind of a natural glowy blush on. It is so beautiful though. I love this shade right here, and these feel so nice and buttery and soft. This one on me does look more subtle. It's not gonna be like crazy intense, but I like it for that reason because it's a good everyday highlight. If you're someone who just wants a highlight to go to work, live your life, nothing crazy, not one that you can see from across the room, I think this is a nice pink toned one. Okay, next up is a palette that I discovered when I did the Charlotte Tilbury one brand tutorial, and this is their limited edition Lightgasm, Glowgasm face palette. That's a lot of gasms happening, let me tell you. This is limited edition. When I'm filming this video, it is still available. I just checked, so hopefully by the time this video goes up, it'll still be available. I don't know why so many brands make their best highlighters limited edition. Some of the best products I feel like are limited edition, which just drives me crazy because then you fall in love with it and then you can't repurchase it, or I can't recommend it to you guys if it's limited edition, but this one is still available right now, so I'm going to mention it. Love this lightest shade right here. Oh my god, I can't even talk. Look at that. It actually looks pretty similar to one that I'll show you next now that I'm looking at it. So this one on the back actually tells you what each powder is intended for. One is a highlight, one's kind of a multi-glow powder. There's a pop blush and then a bronze shade. And it says you can use it all over the skin and I basically use this palette however the heck I want, which is what I really like about it. So this one does something magical when it's on the skin. I can't quite put my finger on what's different about this one than other highlights. I like this palette because I can actually kind of just mix all three shades too. And then this one I think is supposed to be a bronzer, but it has like a slight glow to it, so I can almost use it as just a kind of nice toned summery blush. I just find myself being able to use this in different ways and kind of like play around with it each time I use it to try and find other ways that I like it. Sometimes I'll mix this tan shade with the pink one and use that as a blush, and I think this is probably my favorite Charlotte Tilbury product I found so far, so of course it's limited edition. And then next up, this is the highlight that I was mentioning, that lightest shade in the Charlotte Tilbury kind of reminds me of. I do like this one better. This is definitely in my, I would say like top 3 all-time favorite highlighters, not just high-end, but like out of everything. This is definitely up there. This is the Pur Afterglow. Oh my god, this feels like literal butter. Look at how freaking intense that is, but the thing I like about this is that you can just do a very light dip of your brush in and get that just really kind of soft look. This does not emphasize my texture. I kind of want to layer more on. Should we just get really wild? Let's just go crazy over here. Every time I use this highlight, it just blows my mind all over again. It has a gold undertone, but it's not too much. A lot of gold highlighters on my skin tone can just look overkill. This one's like a mix between a champagne and a light gold. I just could rub my finger in here for forever. It almost has this like, not wet, but it has a little bit of a like cream feel to it, but it's 100% a powder. Oh my gosh, I could stare at that all day. This one I like using if I want an intense one, but I also want it to be pink toned. This is the Burberry Pink Pearl Fresh Glow Highlighter. This one I've used for years as well. It's more of a, I don't want to say dry formula, but it kind of reminds me of the NARS highlight formulas. If you've ever felt those, they're a little bit, yeah, I guess a little bit on the drier side, not in a bad way. It just has a totally different feel than like the Pure one, for example, but this is a very icy with a little bit of a pink, and it is intense on the face, but I love it. If you're fair and you have a little bit more pink in your skin, I think this one would look really pretty. I find myself reaching for kind of more champagne colored highlights now. I used to go pure white or like white with a little bit of pink, so I used to use this one a lot more, and this has a very nice magnetic closure. Packaging of this one is really nice. I mean, it's Burberry, so should be. Speaking of NARS Fort-de-France is probably my most used NARS highlight. I have a couple shades that I'll reach for a lot, but I definitely went through a phase maybe a couple years ago where I used this a lot. And again, it has that like kind of drier formula, but here's that one, super metallic. This one I do find though sometimes, I think it's just when my skin is a little bit on the drier side, this one can emphasize my texture a tiny bit, but it really just depends on like the foundation and everything I'm using. So if you have dry skin, I would say maybe don't get this one, or if you have a lot of texture right here, sometimes can. Sometimes it's totally fine, sometimes it can. So just a little caveat with that one, but this is like a kind of different shade than the other ones I've showed. It has a little bit more peach in it, but still wearable on my skin tone. All right, so next we have a classic. I feel like Jaclyn Hill got Becca highlighters popular with her champagne pop, but my favorite shade for my skin tone is Moonstone. Pearl is like a pure white. Moonstone is a little bit more of a, again, like champagne. Becca highlighters I used to actually not like because I found that they didn't stay on my skin well. And they still don't last on my skin as well as other highlighters. Like I don't feel like they stay on throughout the whole day unless you're using like a good lock it in kind of setting spray. If you're someone who doesn't use a setting spray, I would say probably don't get this highlight because it probably won't stay on well. If you like using setting sprays and it's already in your routine, then you definitely need to use a setting spray with this one. But I find myself still always reaching for this because again, it's buttery, but it's that perfect everyday highlight for me where it does have that just like glow from within look. And it is a little bit more powdery than some of the other formulas, That doesn't bother me personally. Here it is right here. So you can see it next to the NARS here. Here's Becca, here's NARS. So the Becca is for sure kind of more subtle and just soft, so it's a really nice everyday highlight. It's definitely more intense than the e.l.f. Illuminating palette, but it's kind of like a medium between the Pure one I just mentioned and the e.l.f. palette as far as just intensity. And I love the shade of Moonstone. All right, and then kind of like with Ofra, I wasn't sure if this was considered high-end, but I'm gonna mention it because it is one of my all-time favorite highlighters, and it would feel weird leaving out of the highlight video because I didn't mention it in the drugstore one either. But this is the XO Beauty Aurora Radiant Glow Highlight Powder. This is an extremely natural highlight powder, like the most natural out of any of them I'm talking about. You can actually use a big fluffy brush and set your whole face with this. I use this in the glass skin makeup video. Anytime I just want an extremely subtle, super natural highlight, I'll go for this. Like, this is almost to where it just looks like your skin. It doesn't look like I'm wearing like a powder highlight. It's almost more of like a face powder with a satin finish. You can see the glow, but you can barely see it, and that's how it looks on your skin. It's just stunning. Shannon came out with like a version of this powder in different shades, and it was like a glowy kind of sheer setting powder. I think it would do so well. It would be so beautiful. So like I mentioned, for whatever reason, a lot of my favorite products end up being limited edition. So these are kind of like honorable mentions because they are not currently in stock when I'm filming this, but they have been known to come back multiple times, both of these. So I'm kind of mentioning them together so that if you're watching this video in the future, you can check and see if they have come back with these, because I have a feeling they're going to probably bring them back like once a year, which is kind of annoying. Why don't you just make it permanent? But you know. So the first one is the Anastasia Amrezy highlight. This is actually the only Anastasia highlighter that I like, which I know a lot of people love Anastasia highlighters. I find them to be just awful on textured skin. They look very glittery and they just emphasize all of the texture on my face. This one totally surprised me. When I got this in the mail, I was thinking there's no way this is gonna be too dark, it's too gold for my skin tone. And then I put it on, and you guys, this is an intense, glowing gold highlight, but it is so stunning. There is no glitter in here. It is just like a pure metallic. Amrezy has a darker skin tone. I've seen it work on all different skin tones, which I think is what's really unique about this highlighter as well. Somehow it can work on, it seems like literally any skin tone from what I've seen. Intense, but no glitter. And then good old Jouer Molten Glow, one of the best highlighters ever made. Why did they discontinue this? Swatch it next to the Anastasia one. Actually, it looks kind of similar now I'm looking at them side by side. This one is a little bit more of an icy shade, but as far as like how intense they are, I mean, look at them side by side. This Jouer one looks so good in the sun, just both good intense gold. So if they do come back in stock and you like a good gold highlight that is very intense, pick one of these up. All right, so those are all of my favorite high-end highlighters. Let me know what your favorites are down below. I definitely want to try some of Jouer's other highlighters since I do really love the formula of that last one. I have not tried their other highlighters, so I'm going to pick those up. I was looking online when I was just looking up the info on that one. I'm going to link all the ones I talked about in the description box down below, along with the drugstore highlight video. But the makeup on the rest of my face, I'll tell you what I used. We're in the Danessa Myricks foundation again. I did a foundation Friday on that. For bronzer, I used this Burberry, it's technically a blush. It's their Natural Glow blush in the shade Light Glow number 7. But if you have fair skin, you can totally use this as a bronzer. For blush, I used Etude House Ginger. There's lots of cookies happening. Lovely Cookie Blusher in Ginger Honey Cookie. This shade right here. For eyeshadow, I used the BH Cosmetics Trendy in Tokyo palette. So pretty. So pretty. If you're into these bright kind of neon shades. Put that in the crease, that all over the lid, and then that on the lower lash line. And then for the waterline, I used the new ColourPop Pastel collection. They're eyeliners. And then for lips, I just used MAC Lip Gloss in Deco Go-Go. But everything I talked about in today's video will be linked down below in the description box. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.